Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Cass Cooper, and I are going to dig into burnout, broken systems at work, and why trying to fix yourself is not the answer to your burnout. Cass is a leadership strategist who helps organizations get results without burning out their people all the time. After recovering from burnout herself, she now works with leaders to rethink how work actually gets done, identifying where productivity is prioritized over capacity and where high performance masks exhaustion. That, God, I feel that so hard. She's known for reframing burnout as a systems problem, not a personal failure, and for treating so called soft skills, which fell out of favor for a while, as critical infrastructure, not the nice to have. Welcome to the party, Cass.
Hey, how's
How
it
are you?
going?
It's
I'm
good.
doing really
It's good.
well, thank you. It's a beautiful day. I'm here. I've got some water. I'm talking about some of my favorite things, and you
I
know,
know. I mean, Cass and I don't know it. I know a lot of the people that come on the show I know fairly well. You and I just met like one time for 25
yeah.
minutes. I was like, oh, I must have this woman on my show because
Um,
of like you're speaking from what you've lived. And I think like academic degrees are great. I have PhDs and authors and all that on the show, but there's something about I got burned out or I had the thing happen and then I went and addressed it for myself and then I went and studied how we actually fix it, on a larger scale and now I do that. There's something
yes.
about that that is so scrappy and practical and it suits my vibe because that's how I do everything. So,
I love that you presented that as if it was like a tactical choice. It kind of just fell into place
uh
because
fair.
I was burnt out, right? I just was like, I can't do this thing anymore. So, and we'll get into it, I'm sure, but I
I
got to do
mean,
something.
it's always a winding path.
Yeah.
I got into what I do in career and executive coaching because well, early on, I started working with people on job searches because I got laid off twice during the tech wreck of the early 2000s and I'm like, I got to eat and live indoors. Like I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And then later on as I expanded my practice, it was about well, how do we make this not suck? I used to always say work shouldn't suck, and then I switched it to work should feel good because let's have a positive spin from time to time.
Yeah.
So, but I do love a good origin story. So why don't we just start with it? So,
Yeah.
burnout. You
Absolutely.
you started out this whole business of yours with burnout. What were
Yeah.
you doing, and
So
what led to that?
yeah, so let's go back to like 2018, 2019. On paper, I was killing it, right? I was
Oh,
top
yeah.
sales at my organization. I was sales leader of the year twice in a row. I always met or exceeded my goals and strategy, and I was working my way up. I started sharing my strategies with our organization internally and started speaking on stage about how to be a better salesperson. My LinkedIn was growing. I was, learning and thriving and traveling and all these things. And
What
then
kind of sales were you in?
I was in event sales. So
Okay.
I worked for
Ugh.
a company where, we sold meetings. And I used to say that my job was to take people to dinner, make them laugh, and get them to sign a contract. That's it. And so it was a good time. As you said, it didn't suck. It was really,
Yeah.
really fun. I got to travel. I got to do events all over the DFW Metroplex and be in places that a lot of people don't get to experience, who gets to just be backstage at AT&T Stadium on a regular basis. Not a lot of people, right? And then the pandemic hit, and I had actually started to work for a new organization doing the same job, but at a director level. My
Uh-huh.
first day was the first day of shelter in place. And
Oh
so,
my
as you
God.
can tell, yeah. So, an event company with no events, we all went home and we're like, oh, it's only going to be like 6 to 8 weeks. And at the time, I was very much, oh, 6 to 8 weeks, be inside, relax, no travel. I was like, oh, that sounds really great. And then I realized that I could not stay awake during the day and I could not sleep at night. I started drinking a lot. I had a lot of challenges with my kid in general. She was 4 at the time. And I quickly realized I am not an educator. I was super high stressed, mostly because I had been out in the public and I had cultivated this, strategy of being out and always being busy. And therefore, I wasn't able to pay attention to the things that were making me unhappy, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, on paper, I had all the things. I had the house, I had the partner, I had the kid, the suburbs, all the things. And so having a little bit of a relaxation sounded like a great idea, but I quickly realized that I was very depressed and extremely burned out.
That's how long do you think, like when you retrace it back, how long do you think you'd actually been in a state of burnout that you were masking before
Probably at least 2 to 3 years, at least.
Wow.
We define burnout as it's different than fatigue, because fatigue you can maybe sleep through or you change like one or two things. But burnout is a combination of emotional distress, physical distress, and for a long period of time. So yeah, it was probably about maybe 2, 3, maybe even longer. Cause like I said, at the time my kid was 5, 4, 5. So maybe even before I got pregnant, I just kept going. I was always a high achieving person, always goal oriented, very studious, lots of degrees. I read a lot, and chasing that dream that everybody says that they want to have. And so then I got there and realized I don't love any of this.
Yeah, this is like not right.
It's not
I think
worth
that
it.
like one of the most important tenets of what I do is that I want people to pursue success on their own terms, which means they have to define it.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast. It was actually an episode of the Tim Ferriss show, and I'm blanking on who the guest was, but the gal was talking about how she had done an exercise a few years before trying to figure out like what's standing in the way of defining my own success. And she was like, I'm afraid to do it because what if I tee up this is my own definition of success and then I can't do it? Like how much more of a failure will I feel like if I can't even meet my own bar and like stuff like that? It was so wild. But I'm tired of chasing stuff that everybody else says we should chase. Could we just not do that anymore? That'd be great.
Yeah, and I think that is actually where to start. It's what defines happiness, joy, success, peace, rest, relaxation, understanding what those things mean and actually look like for yourself, but then also what it feels like in your body. We're working so quickly to keep moving forward that a lot of us don't even recognize the tension and the anxiety that we hold in our body. We don't take full breaths, we don't sleep well, and we just kind of keep going because that becomes like the normalized state for our nervous system and for our state of being.
The shallow breathing thing, that is something I've been really conscious of lately. And I joined a yoga studio like a couple months ago. Like I'd been doing it at home and I'm terrible at it, but I'm like, I got to leave the house. I'm single and I work at home. Like we got to do something here.
Yeah.
And whenever there's one lady that does a restorative yoga class and the degree to which I became conscious right after I joined that studio of how shallow I'd been breathing was unbelievable. I'm like, I never breathe like that. I feel like I have oxygen now. Yeah. So you had all this burnout. What did your path back from, you and I said like right before I hit record, you think you're still working on recovering from it. It's not necessarily something you've passed, but to get from that state that was probably more of a crisis state, if I understand you correctly, to where you are now, what are some of the things that you did?
So I'm a big fan of reading in general and education. Like I said before, I've read Glennon Doyle's book Untamed, and there's some fans of her and some not fans of her, but I will tell you what, that book revolutionized and changed the way that I saw the options for happiness for myself. I
Mhm.
think one of the biggest things that I started was saying no to things that did not feel right or feel good. I didn't know so much times we think about, okay, I want to do this thing or I want to add this thing. A lot of that has to start with saying no to something first.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, I want to, drink more water. Well, I'm going to not drink as much juice. I
Right.
clearly I have small child because we don't drink soda, we drink juice. But so I can make space for this other thing, right? And so I just
Yes.
started saying no to stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. And it's things that, especially as a woman who was staying home with her kid at the time, and I ended up getting laid off through the pandemic and all of that stuff. But there's certain things like around the house that has just became uh, like necessary for me to do. So I just started saying no to some stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do the dishes and make sure the house is clean. I'm just not going to do it. What's the worst that could happen? We're going to be here tomorrow. I'll do the dishes eventually, but I'm going to say no
Mhm.
to that so I can go to bed early, right?
Yeah.
I started instituting one of my big rules is mama clocks out at a certain time every night. If it's not done by 8:30, I I'm out.
It's not
Not doing
happening.
you know being able to say no to that allowed me to say yes to all these other things, getting back into reading, having time for that restorative breath. A big part of it to me also was therapy. I'm privileged enough to have great health insurance and being able to I actually been seeing my therapist well before the pandemic, and I just kept with it. I started going back every week, speaking with her, telling her the truth about what was going on. And she was the one who recognized, like, okay, there's something else going on here other than just you have anxiety, or there's something else
Yeah.
going on here. And she was able to
Or
be like,
just
okay,
depression.
yeah, we need those outside references to be able to hold us into a healthy space. I'd say the last big thing, I still tried my best and I maintained my community. Having other women who are high achieving, who are also going through the same thing, is such an important part of recovering from burnout because it makes it okay to not be okay, to
Yes.
not have the answer, and to be able to crowdsource, like, okay, this is how you're managing these things. This is how I'm managing things. Where are they similar? Where are they different? And how can we work together in order to do that? I mean, so saying no, clocking out at a certain time, maintaining community, and being in therapy, those things, talk
I
about.
mean, that's a pretty damn good list for the rest of your life, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I started therapy in late 2020 because I did not think I was going to make it out of 2020. Like, there was a thing that they were talking about at the time, which was that anytime that there's a long crisis, you can handle it. Like, at the beginning, you're like, what the heck? And then you settle in and you're doing the thing. And then around 6 months, it
Hmm.
starts to really suck. Like, you all of a sudden go, oh, I don't know when this is ending. And
Hmm.
it just becomes a stronger weight. And then we all globally did that roughly at the same time. And I had a really tough time. And I started therapy right around then. And I did not have the kind of health insurance that paid for the therapist that I needed. I reached in my pocket for that, and it's the best thing I ever did.
Yeah.
So it was, and I also, like, my therapist was very conscious of the physical things that can lead to depression too. And so he's like, okay, we need to do A, B, and C together. Also, could you please go get some medical tests?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I literally found out I had a freaking pituitary tumor.
See,
Like,
and this is
no.
where I say that so much of our burnout, that is especially for women, especially for high achieving women, so much of our burnout is sustained by the systems and processes and the policies we
Mhm.
have in place. So the fact that you did not have access to health insurance to enable you to get the tests and the help that you needed in order to either prevent or to monitor your burnout is a systemic issue.
I've had insurance. I want to be clear on
Oh,
that. But
sure.
I'm not disagreeing that it's systemic. But one of the structures that we'll talk a lot about work and how work leads to that. But in my case, I had health insurance the whole time. it didn't cover the therapist that I wanted. So
Oh,
that was like a
mhm.
diva thing for me. But I needed kind of a certain thing, and I found the person that I wanted, and they were not on insurance, but I made it work. But the wildest part is I discovered a pituitary tumor and like a couple of autoimmune type things all at the same time because my therapist pushed me to go get private tests. And the whole time, years before that, of course, my PCP is like, well, you would be fine if you would just lose 50 pounds. And I'm like, well, if my
Yeah.
endocrine system is, I fired that guy as soon as I could. But if my endocrine system is jacked, how do you expect me to lose 50 pounds? How is that going to work?
And that again goes back to the way that we talk to women
Yep.
about our health. Like
Yep.
that is a systemic issue, and that is a way that sexism and misogyny personifies itself in our health system. So when we continue to look to these healthcare professionals to help us, and listen, I too have an autoimmune disorder. I am thoroughly enjoying the health care that I am
Yes.
privileged to have.
Same.
However, comma, there is something to be said about that kind of access should be available to everybody. And what does it say about our culture and our society, about our workplaces when we're allowing all of these things to continue and really disenfranchise women and make it difficult for us to just even work and this stay atop of our lives and our livelihood. It's like we're so tied to being unhealthy that we have to work in order to get healthy. And then once we get healthy, we don't have any time because we're working so much, right?
Yep.
So it's this,
So
where can we interrupt that system? Where can we interrupt that cycle?
did you
Because
have an aha? So you were going through your personal burnout stuff, like dealing with that, figuring out your 4 rules and putting them in place. Was there a point in that where you had the aha that it was a systemic problem instead of a personal problem? Because that's one of the most like you're on this show because I find that whole conversation so interesting. When
yeah,
did you
so
figure that out?
So actually, my degree is in women's and gender studies. And so
Okay.
understanding that the personal is political has been a critical part of just all of my sense of knowing and understanding of the world around me. I went to a shout out to DePaul University. I had an amazing program there. And so understanding that nothing just happens just to us and it's something that happens globally is something that is
You
critically
were
important
wired
to
in
me.
on that. You've been
Yeah,
wired in on that for a long time. Okay.
but I think the burnout issue specifically is more of a recent thing. The aha
Okay.
moment, I think, came to me when I started talking to other women who were having similar issues and challenges and problems. Perimenopause is a huge thing that everyone is talking about right now. And when I started to really look into why we're having more and more issues and challenges and talking to my friends, it did kind of like light bulb of, oh, this is not just a me thing. I think also,
Mhm.
so my dad passed away in 2021, and when that happened, I had just started the business and I wasn't working, and I had a couple of clients, and the ability to be able to pull back in the way that was healthy for me and realizing that like my sister couldn't do that was a huge aha moment,
Yeah.
right? Because she got what, 3 maybe 4 days of bereavement where I was able to say, hey client, this project is on hold indefinitely,
Mhm.
or I can do this much and then we'll have to offload it, and here's some other people that could help you with the end of it, or whatever that looked like at the time. But really understanding that some of us have these certain privileges and some of us don't, and that is a failure of how we don't support underrepresented people or just people in general. It's not even
Yeah,
underrepresented.
I mean,
Everybody
I
needs health
work with
insurance.
it's interesting because, like, you come at it a lot from the women and gender studies lens, but you're also a smart woman, so I know like, when the statement that confuses a lot of people is that patriarchy hurts men. Like,
Oh,
they don't you know what I mean?
honey, we get you. I
They
mean,
don't
are we talking? Where do you want to go with that?
yeah,
Because I
I
got that.
mean,
Yeah.
we are. We can go there for a little bit, but people don't understand it. My client base, I have a lot of men in my client base, like, why 40-year-old men, 45-year-old men in my client base because I've worked with leaders in tech for so long, because that's where I came from. And it's very interesting because a lot of times when you are a woman coach, this, people assume, well, you just work with women because that's just how people's brains work. And if I had to pick one gender to work with, I would pick men, because for whatever reason, they find me safe to tell the things that are bothering them in a way that they don't feel like they can tell men, and they don't feel like they can tell a lot of other women. And I'm like, this is just as important to you as it is to
And
every other woman.
that right there is what we mean when we say patriarchy hurts men, because how sad is it that you have
Yeah.
to outsource to essentially a stranger? You become known to them, but you're a stranger. You don't have people in your community and in your life and in your family that you can talk to about your feelings and what you're actually experiencing at work, and get actual help and have access to vulnerability. That in and of itself is a byproduct of
It's a whole
patriarchy.
thing. Swallowing our feelings, which, I mean, I'm a Gen X, so our whole generation has been swallowing our feelings since we were children. But anytime you're doing that and you're being told that not showing any needs is a symbol of strength, is you gaslighting yourself, or the organization that you're in gaslighting itself.
Yep, 100%.
So when you think specifically about applying the principle of, okay, light bulb, Cass knows, Cass has figured out, burnout is systemic, and then deciding to work inside organizations, when you go and start working inside an organization, what are some of your first tells that there's significant burnout, and that there are specific things that the company has put in place that can be changed to address that?
So I look at your meeting culture as a huge thing. I did a series recently on we need to cancel all meetings, and not forever, right? But I had a client last year who my suggestion was, cancel all the reoccurring meetings on your schedule and then add back in what you actually need. Because a lot of times we just have a reoccurring meeting just because we have it, and then you end up with back to back to back to back to back to back. And when are you supposed to actually do the work that you talk about in the meeting? Well, you're doing it either one in the next meeting, which decreases your productivity, or two, you're doing it after hours, which decreases your availability for a life outside of work. And so that's the first thing I look at is, what is your meeting culture? How often are you having your
what does a healthy meeting culture look like versus
So
an unhealthy?
I think healthy meeting culture, it's a couple of different levels. It depends on what level in the organization you're in, but keep your meetings short, right? Does it have to be 30 minutes? Schedule the default to be 25 or 20 and have that little bit of space in between. Can we get these things done in 45 minutes instead? I really love how there's some organizations, Amazon specifically, one of the things that they do is they have a brief, and they spend the first 5 minutes, 10 minutes of the meeting, everyone reading the brief. And then you come back with the question, so everybody's on the same page and aware of what the meeting is for. So many times people show up to things and it's like, why was I invited to this? What does this have to do? And then there's no agenda, and nobody is really clear about what the desired outcome for this conversation is meant to be. So rather than having these, and then you have to have the meeting after let's just dead all of that. Let's not do any of that. Let's be concise and be clear, and make sure that we're able to communicate. I think the other thing is people having, when I'm working with individuals, not necessarily the system itself or the organization itself, I look at what are your notification settings. It seems so small, but the constant like buzzing of notifications, that's distracting from you actually getting work done. And then recently there was a study that came out from Harvard that talked about how people are getting like AI fry and what do they call it? It was AI fry and notification overload, because they're getting so many, you got notifications on your phone, you got it on your computer. The washer dryer has a specific sound. Your car is buzzing. And all these different things that are distracting from your attention. Each app has a different sound. So now your brain has to say, okay, is that email or is that TikTok? Like, it's so much overload that can be solved by doing a reset of your notifications. Either turn them all off, mute some of them, or even most of the time you can just get a summary of them and you just read the things that you need. You don't need to know everything every time.
I think the notifications thing is very interesting to me right now for two reasons. Number one of the things, if I had to add to your 4 rules that we talked about earlier, mine is never have work email on a personal device. So for
that's interesting.
So, okay, this is one of my favorite ones because people are like, how'd you get by with that? So I worked in product management at my last corporate job before I left for good in 2019. And even when I was in product management, my rule was I already work 45 plus hours most weeks because I was way overloaded. My what I did is on my phone and my iPad, which are personal devices, I had the account set up. Like it was there, but it was always turned off. So the only time I would ever turn it on is like if I got a text from one of a couple of people, like if my boss, who was very good at knowing what isn't an emergency, texted me and said, I really need you to look at this, this evening, then I would open up my settings, turn it back on, go find that email, deal with it, and turn it back off. And I've maintained that. I did that for at least 2 years when I was in corporate, and now I'm almost 7 years into full-time working for myself. I still don't have my work email on my phone. The other thing is I just moved all of my clients, like the asynchronous coaching access they had me usually before, it was like through email or text. And I am constitutionally incapable of dealing with a notification bubble. I can't handle it. I'm an inbox. I try to get my inbox down to 0. Like I feel like people either have like 5 unread emails or they have 43,622 unread emails.
Which is maddening when I open people's phones.
My mom's that way. So many people I know are that way.
I just go in and delete just delete it.
So for me, I turn all that stuff off so I don't have to deal with the bubbles. And then I just moved everybody into Slack, though, for asynchronous access. And I told them Monday through Thursday, at least once a day, I will read and respond to stuff. Sometimes you'll get it right away. Sometimes it'll take me I got to go be thoughtful about it. But I said, you have to put it in there and you have to be patient because I do not have any notifications on. I don't get an email if I get a Slack. I don't get anything. Because that's how I actually am able to serve them better than if I'm fragmented. So anyway.
And I think that right there, it's having the ability, because this goes into the soft skills thing. Emotional regulation is so hard.
Yeah.
So hard. And a lot of times we're asking people to be patient and emotionally regulate themselves at work in a way that they are not capable of doing at home. So when we're constantly on and someone's pinging you and they expect an answer right away, they ping you and you don't answer within 5 minutes, and then they call you, and also that is their anxiety.
That is the equivalent
your behavior. It's the equivalent of you yelling at a kid for not being able to mommy, I need. And so all this things that we keep doing and we keep holding on to, we think that those skills are just something that, we're going to work on outside of it. It's like, no, they all bleed into each other. Your inability or your desire to always be on and always be answered is probably deeply rooted in some sort of shadow self. And listen, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. So I'm not my jam. However, I do believe that the way that you show up at work is influenced by the soft skills that you have or don't have in your personal life. And those are the hardest things that we have to work on. Who wants to go and unpack their childhood so they can be more productive at work? Nobody really. But if you do, you probably are going to be better because you're going to be able to manage your own emotions and your own expectations in a way that will get you to that executive presence and executive gravitas that we're all seeking on some level.
Yeah, when you deal with your shit, whatever that shit is, when you deal with your shit, one of the things you find out, ideally, is that all the stories that you've been telling yourself about how you don't have worth if you're not helping someone else start to fall away. They don't 100%. Like, we are humans and most of us like to help people. But I watch it, among my fellow entrepreneurs, and then I watch it among my clients that are in corporate. And I have a few entrepreneur clients too, so I run the gamut. And it's very interesting to see how many people leave corporate because of the meeting culture and the notifications and the mommy equivalent of whatever the hell your boss is doing, only to go and build the same shit for themselves in their business.
That's all you know. That's all you
know. I have to, for my client, I'm like, you have to tell your client how you work together. And you tell them that when you're selling to them so that they know what they're getting into.
And I think that for me, with my burnout challenge, is that was all I knew. I only knew being on all the time, about working, getting up at 5 so I could do a little bit of yoga and have some coffee and getting the kid ready and driving across town in traffic and then starting my job and having meetings and taking people to lunch and then going home and making dinner. And I'm already tired just describing it, right? And so, but that's all we knew. And if we never take the time to say, there's another way to do this, we could have chose anything, and we chose capitalism. Like, okay, but how are we going to work within that so that we don't?
Thank you for saying that, because here's the thing. I know, I talk to people. I talk to people that have all sorts of different perspective on politics, capitalism, society, et cetera. And the thing that not enough people are saying is basically we have to figure out how to work within the system that we are in. Sitting around complaining about it while you continue all the behaviors that further your burnout that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
And it's like outsourcing to the world your health, in my opinion. And I don't think that's really great. That's not a great move.
This is the thing that I always come back to. And I had to tell myself this, Cass, no one is coming to save you. You have to save yourself. You have to put your oxygen mask on for yourself first. That whole adage of you can't pour from an empty cup is so true. But why are we trying to pour ourselves out in the first place is really the question. So I have to be able to be okay with myself so that I can be in community. I have to be okay with myself so that I can be the best version of me so that I can show up for my family and for my friends and for it just no one is coming to save you, and you have to do the first thing. Now,
yes.
Could there be more systemic things? Like, two things can be true. Yes, we need to save ourselves, and we need systems and strategies and policies in place that allow us the space to do that. But they have to work in tandem. No one's going to.
We can't sit around like waiting for universal health care to decide that our health is important.
Yeah.
I
Is
understand.
It hard? That. Yes. Is it doable? Also, yes.
So I want to turn to something that I like. It was one of those phrases that I've seen you use. Like, I'm on your email newsletter, join Cass's email, go to our website, join our email. It's a good one. But you talk about high performance masking exhaustion. And the people that are doing this and are the most vulnerable often are the ones that their leaders most rely on and should be having an eagle eye on. So if you're an executive, if you think about somebody that was a layer or two above you when you were burning out as a director, what would you want that executive that's looking at their high performing leaders and employees to keep their eye out for, that their people might be burned out or burning out?
Yeah. So it's such a hard thing because you want to say that the people who are doing the best are the ones you don't have to worry about. But those are actually like I said, the people that you got to worry about the most, because they're going to keep doing the things. I would watch out for, there are also probably people who are sending emails at 9 o'clock at night, who are answering emails within 5 to 10 minutes, who or less, actually. They're probably the people who are answering emails within a minute or 30 seconds. Like, did you read all of that? Because I don't think that you did, because you just answered
You got the co-pilot summary at the top. That's what they're reading.
Well, this was 7 years ago, so we didn't have all that. But also true, like it's the people who are so quick, right? Not speedy in a way that the business needs, but speedy in a way that they're just trying to complete tasks. I would definitely it's the people who are like, it doesn't matter what time you email or call them, they're going to answer. Those are the people. I remember I was sitting at a restaurant. My dad had come into town, and I was there with my kid and my husband at the time. We're now divorced, which also helped get rid of my burnout, but that's another story for another day. And we're sitting there and we're just having dinner and stuff, and my work cell phone rang and I answered it, and my dad was so annoyed. And I was like, well, and then in my head, I'm like, well, how do you think we're paying for this dinner? Like, how do you think we're doing all this? Da, 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 da. And he was like, no, this is family time. And I didn't even
lower your salary.
Well, yeah. But I'm like, no, but I need my commission, right? Because like but it was more of, I was getting all of my worth. I also would look out, like, if people don't have hobbies, like, man, get yourself an analog hobby. I love paint by numbers. That is my jam now. I discovered it during the pandemic. I love paint by numbers, coloring, all of that stuff. I would say for skip level, like, people who are always on and who never say no, and don't penalize people for saying no. Like,
I was just going to ask you about the saying no thing, because so many people, especially women, are convinced that they cannot say no to their boss. And it's not just like, oh, I want to get ahead. For a lot of them, it's like a fear of getting fired. They can be like the senior director of whatever that got the only exceeds expectations in the department, and they're still convinced if they say no that they're going to get fired, when realistically, strategically saying no will probably get them even better results. So that's very interesting. So when you are that leader and you identify the burning out Cass, what do you do?
My boss sent me on a vacation once. It didn't solve the problem, but it did realign my commitment to working differently. I don't always tell this story, but I'm going to tell it.
Great.
So
I love the stories you don't always tell.
And she's a friend now. Hopefully she's listening. So my boss at the time, she put me on a performance improvement plan. She put me on a PIP, and I had already had the trip scheduled, and I was kind of just going out of town for a couple of days, just driving to the country and whatever. Don't let the makeup fool you. I am a country girl at heart, but
you're from Texas. You got to be put together. Like, I know.
We got to be put together, but also we got the cowboy boots and the hat and the jeans in the closet. So, but so the day before, she sat me down and she was like, "You're turning into that salesperson that nobody wants to work with. Are your numbers great? Yes. But nobody wants to take on your clients because it's a hot mess. You're promising things just to close deals. You're not documenting well." Like, I was, quite frankly, I was being pretty shitty. Like, let's just be honest.
You were not at your best.
I was not at my best. But again, all I was concerned about is always being like seen as that high achiever and like someone who was like all these things. It was about the accolades. It wasn't actually about the clients or the people that I was working with. And she was like, "Listen, I have to put you on this thing. It's 30 days. She was like, "I know I hate to do this before you go out of town, but I need you to go out of town. Don't take your phone. Don't take anything. Be offline. And she's like, if you come back next week and you want to learn all the things that will make you better, then I will teach you. But if you come back next week and you're like, you know what, this is in place for me, she's like, I'll help you find another job in the next 30 days. I was like, ah, so it's a win-win.
That is leadership right there.
So she sat me down and she was like, and she literally said to me, she's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. It's none of my business, whether it be your family life, whatever. But all of that is bleeding into who you're showing up here in these four walls. And we can't have that. So go and do the things and think about what you want to do. And here are your two paths when you come back. I came back and I thought about it. And I was like, I actually do like this job. And I actually do enjoy the people that I'm working around and being in the events industry and all the cool things that come with it. I don't want to give that up. So I said, all right, girl, teach me what I need to know.
What's the first thing she taught you after that?
Oh, bring the contract to dinner.
Wow.
Yeah. Bring the contract to dinner.
Today we're docu-signing it, but it's like,
well, yeah, have it ready to go.
Have it ready.
It sounds like, and we would. It sounds like we're ready. We're about to work together and stuff. Why don't you go ahead and sign this letter of agreement, and we'll get the details sorted out after we get back to the office. Like that was one of the first things I was like, I'm gonna keep that.
That feels good.
Yeah,
that feels really good.
Yeah,
nice. I love that. So I want to go back a little bit for a few minutes to soft skills as infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like that was, I've been really I've been in this space for a long time, part-time for several years before I went full-time in my business. And I've been watching the evolution of how people have talked about soft skills, because there was about a 10 or 15 year period where nobody wanted to say soft skills. They would say everything in the world except soft skills.
Yeah.
Because it sounded squishy. It didn't sound
fuzzy and feel good. And
yeah, it didn't sound.
You just want to have fun. This is work. You got to be serious.
I have heard the term soft skills more in the last 12 months than I had in the 5 years prior. So I'm locked in on this. So what do you mean by soft skills as an infrastructure? Tell me about that.
Soft skills are, first of all, I high-key hate the term soft skills because they are very, very difficult. Like we said before, emotional regulation is not easy, but it's the thing that separates good employees from great leaders. Being able to have hard conversations is not easy. Being confrontational and having a conversation with somebody that puts them either on edge or at ease, those are hard skills to learn.
Yeah.
It's easier. Like, listen, I can teach you how to read a P&L. I can teach you how, like, the alphabet soup of whatever industry we're in. But I can't teach you how to make people feel good when you tell them no. Like, that is a hard skill to understand, right? And so if we create spaces where people can show up as their best selves, where they can are expected to have emotional regulation, are able to say no without fear of retaliation. That is the infrastructure for a better organization and a better company where people can work together and work together well and for a long time and ultimately make money, right?
Yeah.
I was, what made me a good salesperson was I was able to get a yes. What made me a great salesperson was I was able to make everybody feel good about that yes. That was the difference, right? Because then they would come back and want to say yes to me over and over and over again. Some of the clients that I had then are still people who, now that I'm not in the event industry, they still come to me for referrals and ask me questions. And we're talking 6, 7, 8 years later. It's not because I don't have anything to sell them at this point. I'm in a completely different industry, but they still see me as a trusted advisor. And that is what you want to be able to build as the infrastructure of your organization. You don't want it to be just about, oh, we make people feel good and we send them, hats and pizza. We want to be able to get raving fans from our clients because we're able to make them feel great about the decisions that they make in our products. And that starts with the people that you have.
I think there's there's so much good in what you just said. Like, I'm loving all of it. So one thing is if I was speaking to a leader out of everything that you just said that was trying to make their organization a little more burnout proof,
Mhm.
the ability, letting people know that they can say no or push back without retaliation is the number one thing that I would do. Because then people can say no to the meetings without the agenda, and they can say no to constantly answering email right away, like all those other 4 rules that you talked about. Like if you can say no without retaliation, those things become more possible. But I'm really interested. I think people would love to have a little nugget of one of those skills that you just talked about. So if you can give like a quickie version on how to make people feel good when you say no. What what are your thoughts on that? If somebody could walk away from here doing that even 10% better, it's
Yeah.
worth listening for an hour. So what's the recipe for that?
Yeah. So start before you even know that there's a no, right? It has to, a lot of times you're having conversations and you're not really sure where the friction is. So start with, hey, we want the same thing. We want the same thing. You want this widget. I have this widget. We both want each other to, we want to exchange money for this widget. We want the same thing. We're on the same side. How can we stay on the same side as we make this
Oh,
negotiation? Right?
I call that focusing on the mission
Yeah.
instead of focusing on the difference or the personality or whatever causes the
Mhm.
conflict. So
So in sales, that's how I would do it. Internally, if you're a project manager internally and you have internal stakeholders, it's the same kind of thing. We both want your client to say yes, right? We
mhm.
both want this project to meet its deadline. Okay, but if we're going to meet the deadline, there's some things that we can't do, and there's some things that we absolutely have to do. Let's work
Mhm.
together to prioritize what your list is and what my list is and consolidate them into the same, right?
Yep.
Now, I've never said no, but I told you no,
Yep.
right?
I have one of those bosses that like had to have some stern talking tos with me, including I got laid off by this when I was working for this boss, which was fine. I kind of wanted to leave anyway, but he
Isn't that
calls
crazy how that happens sometimes where you're like, it's
like
really
really.
okay.
I literally had a draft of a resignation. I was trying to ship a product and then I was going to leave because I was burned out.
Yep.
But this boss said there are so many ways to say no without saying no.
Yeah.
And I'm hella direct. And you see a much like, this is 12 years later, 14 years later, something like that. I've had a few corners knocked off compared to when I was 12 years younger. But yeah, he called it saying no without saying no.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really good. I also like everything that you said because it forces prioritization. And one of the biggest lies that we tell ourselves in the world of work and business is that we can multitask, that we can do all the things when nothing ever got done without focus.
Yeah.
Nothing meaningful ever got done
Yeah.
without focus.
And
So,
the thing about it is, again, we're within capitalism, we're supposed to always be working, always be on, always be fueling the financial infrastructure of our lives, right?
mhm.
And this is why I'm like, it's the hardest work you'll ever do because it is a revolutionary act to not always be working and to be able to set healthy boundaries and be able to say, I don't want to do this. I want to do this instead. Or this is a better use of my time. This is a better use of my capital. That's
Yeah.
hard to say. And I want to acknowledge that. But it's also a revolutionary way of thinking and working. And if more people can do that and do that well, I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, think that people will feel good at work. It won't be something that you aren't able to maintain. You're going to want to come to work because you have an environment that balances your must of feeding the capitalist mechanisms that we work in and you as a human who has a finite amount of emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical resources. Like
Yeah.
those two things have to be able to coexist in order for work to feel good.
You're basically talking about people asserting their agency.
Oof. Yes.
And And I talk about agency a lot, and I ask people, like, conversations get real uncomfortable when I've had a cocktail or two, and I ask one of my
Right.
fellow business owners, this usually happens like at a conference or something. I'll be like, look, why are you choosing everything except for yourself?
Oof.
Why is everybody's needs except yourself more important? Like, if you got little kids you got to feed and keep alive, I get that. But why does what your client wants become more important than your health? Why does what the husband you should probably kick to the curb, or that you should tell what you need, why is their comfort more important than your health? Like that kind of stuff. But people don't believe they have any agency. And so I love trying to help people chip away at, understanding that they have agency. You know what one of my favorite things to do is, Cass?
Tell me.
Encourage people to say no because I don't want to. Like, and literally say that. So my sister texts me at 8:30 Sunday morning.
Uh-huh.
We're recording on a Tuesday, and 48 hours later, I'm still thinking about this. She texts me and is like, dinner. This is the standard, like, hey, do you want to go out to dinner? It happens, once a week probably. And I was like, sure, let's do it. And then later on that day, I texted her and I was like, actually, no, on dinner. I just am grumpy and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm not fit company for anybody and I don't want to.
And that being able to say that without fear of like anger, frustration, retaliation, gaslighting, guilt tripping, like any of that to me, that's a sign of a healthy space. Hopefully that's how she reacted. I didn't let you get to the end.
It was fun. She was like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Because also sometimes what happens is when you say no, I don't want to, the other person's like, oh, thank God.
Thank God.
I didn't want to either.
What is the introvert joke? Like, there's nothing an introvert loves more. Like, we want to be invited places and then we want it to be canceled.
100%. 100%. One of my best friends, I got him he's very introverted and he reads a lot. So I got him a shirt that says, I closed my book to be here, because like he literally will cancel plans and he'll be like, I'm in the middle of the best book. I'm not coming.
Right. I'm like, you know what? Somebody asked me about having dinner on Thursday night. I'm like, the finale of The Pit is coming out on Thursday. So that's going to be a no.
Yeah.
No.
We'll talk about The Pit Oscar.
All right. We can do that. So before we go, I want to ask you, so let's say you're a person and you're recognizing from either this conversation or something else, damn, I am burning out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in an organization where you don't know, like, you don't have an executive or a manager that's paying attention to this. You're kind of feeling like an island, but you want to take care of yourself. What are 2 things you'd have somebody do tomorrow? Like, literally very actionable, small things.
Yes.
Just to get 1% better on that.
Okay, I'm going to actually give you, maybe I can give you 3.
Okay.
The first thing I would say is go take my course online.
All right. Cool.
I have a bundle that I shared with your producer to put in the show notes, but it's 7 videos. They're all less than 5 minutes each about how to recognize and things that you can do to not be burnt out. And I'll give you the first 2. The first one is write down the things that bring you joy, right? Right. Just write them all down, right? And it doesn't have to be currently, right? It might be things that you used to do that I wish I had more time to exercise. I wish I had more time to, I don't know, spend time with my friend or, take my dog for a walk, whatever that. Write down the things that bring you joy, right? And then the second thing is write down the things that don't bring you joy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then circle one thing that brings you joy and cross off one thing that doesn't.
And just stop with that.
And that's it. Just start. It's the microscopic things. It's the itty bitty things that can make all the difference. We live in such a culture where we have to do everything all the time and everything has to like show up. We have to be the best partners, mothers, sisters, brothers, like daughters, sons, workers, like it's a lot. It's a lot. But if we could just do one thing and be 1% better at that one thing every day, that's a pretty good life.
Yeah. I think that's that. And even if it's only 1% better this month, you're still a percent better, you know. I know how math works. So like that whole, 1% better over a year and you're like 1,000,000%
Compound
better.
interest,
Like,
baby.
that's
It's
cool.
compound
That's
interest.
cool. But you can just get used to one thing at a time. And if that thing is, I'm actually going to take the dog out over lunch for 15 minutes to walk for 3 times this week. If that's all you do, that's still progress. And that can make you more. One of the hardest things about being in a burnout state is that you lose your imagination.
Yeah, you do.
When you are in an unhealthy state of any kind, your imagination goes, and that's very difficult to deal with. But I think the dog walk. I don't have a dog, and I don't want to get one. Guys, don't text me and tell me that I should just get a dog.
You can come down to Texas and walk my dog because I'll
walk your dog. We'll go walk your dog together sometime.
Perfect.
But just changing your environment is real. I'm glad the weather's nice because one of the things that I've been thinking about is I just want to sit on the porch and drink tea. I did that during the pandemic a lot.
Yeah.
And like just sit on the porch and drink a cup of tea. Because I don't get outside enough. I'm very indoorsy. I am so glad that you came. I have one question that I ask everybody before I close, and that is, what is the worst piece of career advice you've ever received?
Oh man, I've gotten a lot of bad ones. The worst, the absolute worst, that I can't do something. I do whatever I want. I have free will. Now, should I do it? That's another thing.
That's we can have a whole conversation about that. But you can't do it. Yeah.
Hold my beer. Like, hold my beer while I figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I do strongly believe that everything is figure outable. And yeah, I've had a lot of managers. Well, we can't do that.
Says who?
Actually, we can do that. And I have written out 10 steps to make it so that we could. And these are the departments that we need to talk to in order to make it happen. You still think we can't do it?
If you're saying we're not gonna, that's fine.
That's all. Now, are you saying you don't want to? If you're saying that's not a good idea, that doesn't align with the business as it is right now. Okay, those are all different answers. But the fact that we can't, I think, we could.
I think that's really important. It goes back to agency. I'm choosing not to is way different than I can't.
Correct.
And when you say I can't, you are absolving yourself of a responsibility.
Yep.
Sometimes we don't need to take all the responsibility in the world on. Like, I get that. But just understand where your choices sit. That's a really good place to end. Cass, I'm so glad that we ran across each other.
Me too. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah, you're gonna help people make work feel good. You're gonna help leaders put attention on this, and I really enjoy that. You mentioned the course. Can you just say your your website real quick for the people?
It's very easy I'm easy to find. I am casscooper.com.
What?
Very easy to find.
Wait, is it casscooper.com or I am
casscooper.com. You can find all the things there. You can find link to my podcast, links to my courses. I have a Patreon that you can participate. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm in all the places.
I feel like I'm going to be stitching some stuff on the TikTok.
The Tickety Talks, I was going hard for a little while, but I'm picking it back up. But
I don't spend I enjoy it. It's not like a primary channel for me, but it's fun, and I like to get salty on TikTok. I feel like it's the best place to get salty.
It's the best. Listen, and I love a good clap back in the comments. Please argue with me in the comments.
Oh, well, will you argue with me in the comments?
Absolutely, 100%.
That would be amazing. We'll have a great time. All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Cass, for being here, and we'll see you next time.